Welcome to the Agent and the Fan podcast. I'm Lou, the fan, with my boy Chris, the agent.
What's going on, guys? We have a very special guest today, Sweeny Murti, the Yankees WFAN reporter. Sweeny is a longtime friend of mine, and I'm really happy to have you. And it's a very exciting day for us in that we booked you, Sweeny, and look at what happened. Aaron Judge signed with the Yankees just minutes ago.
Just like that.
Timing is everything, right? That's what we learned in this business. You never make plans because things can go awry. I'm just glad. Listen, I haven't seen you in a while. I'm glad our hairlines have both done the same thing. And I like
it.
Same
here.
No, it's great to have you, Sweeny. Yeah, Sweeny. So let's get right to it. Aaron Judge, obviously, exciting news for the Yankee fans. And for the Yankee organization, it was pins and needles really up through last night. The report was yesterday that was erroneously reported that he had signed with the Giants.
The report was that he was, I think, it appears headed to the Giants, not that he had signed. So
okay,
yeah, just for accuracy.
Yep. I guess that's a way around of breaking the story, but not breaking the story.
It's part of the dangers of trying to incrementally add things to a story is when your words get parsed differently, and he retracted it, but it wasn't about the idea of he didn't report that he had signed with the Giants.
Right.
He reported that signs were pointing that way.
Right.
We all get signals like that from time to time. And I'm sure, Chris can speak to it too. As an agent, you get mixed signals sometimes too from teams.
Yes.
And as people who are trying to get news, you're relying on agents, you're relying on teams, you're relying on different people around the player or the team, and just trying to piece together information because, everyone's trying to hold their cards very close while still throwing little breadcrumbs out there. It's not always easy to do. Most of the guys who do this are very, very good at it, and they pride themselves on being accurate. And at the time, what John reported might not have been inaccurate, although it might have been something that the team didn't necessarily want out there because maybe they felt it wasn't, it wasn't necessarily all that good feeling about it yet. So, you'd have to ask John specifically, but I hate killing him for something that, it's being thrown out there that he's reported that that Judge signed with the Giants, and that's not what he reported. It's just that, until decisions are made, we're all searching for little breadcrumbs.
No, it's true. And even the things that are reported days ago are still not done. And that's one thing. A lot of times I know as an agent, you get, hey, I need the terms of the deal. And you're like, there is no deal, it's not a deal until it's a deal. And sometimes you're waiting on the physical, or sometimes you're waiting on the actual, because you do have to, as an agent, you have to read the language. You have to go through the language. It's not a standard language. So everything is different.
I'll give you just an example that popped into my head. This is from a long time ago, how weird things can get. You remember when the Yankees traded Jeff Weaver to the Dodgers for Kevin Brown, right?
Yes.
There was language in Kevin Brown's contract that he signed with the Dodgers that guaranteed him luxury suite, and it guaranteed him plane rides for his family from Atlanta to LA. Well, in trying to rework the deal for the Yankees, the monetary value of suites at Dodger Stadium was different from what was actually in Yankee Stadium, which weren't suites, right? In the old Yankee Stadium.
Yep.
The monetary value of the flights from LA to Atlanta are different than flights from New York to Atlanta. So you can't just throw that away.
Right. No question.
Language has to be reworked.
No,
so
a lot of stuff. Yeah.
The Yankees have traded for Kevin Brown. They had to get all of those details done before you could actually announce the deal.
Right. No question. That's always the case. And I was watching actually last night. They had Buck Showalter on. They were on MLB Network, and they wanted to talk to him about Verlander, of course. And Buck was like, "I hope you're not going to talk to me about a player who hasn't been officially tested his physical yet." But it's true. All these things, you get, because you get lost in it. I know when you have a big deal, you get done.
Didn't Greg Vaughn have a big deal?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I think he had a back
So
thing.
Sweeny,
So
I mean, obviously being an insider is obviously having relationships, right? But with that said, what tangible thing do you guys have with the front offices, the managers, the general managers to get that information where they feel comfortable with you to put that out there?
It's just a it's hard to describe. It's probably harder to actually get to that point. Like
Yeah.
there are still places where you're just not comfortable with it because in the end you're always just trying to lean on the people that you know to tell you things, and as much as they want to try, sometimes it's not always it's rarely in their best interests to divulge that information. Or you're fighting against people they have longer standing relationships with. Like if for instance, like if I had leaned on Chris versus, and there was somebody else that he had a previous working relationship with, for say, like he knew 5-10 years before me, that person's probably getting the information before me, and that's hard to fight. I think another thing that's hard to fight right now is that there are so many people trying to get this information and only a small group of people who know the information.
So how does Carlos Baerga get into this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know, but he got one wrong, right? Because
He got one wrong. Yeah.
The judge was going to the Giants, even though he got the other one right. But I think a lot of it is just trying to pick and choose. I know a specific agent who told me that this person gets this story, and that person gets that story. Or I will give one person that this guy signed with this team. I will give the other person the years and the dollars, and kind of parse it out that way and try to spread it out. But we're always trying to fight for it. And now there's so many more people. But I mean, at best, I don't know, Chris can probably talk about this better. How many people really know the true terms of a deal?
That's
Is it more than 5 or 6?
No, I don't think so.
And how many of us are trying to call? Like,
no, and that's the thing. And a lot of time, yeah, no, it's true. And sometimes when things get out, like I know as an agent, you're going like, how does it get out? And then you know, if I know with my old group, there was 3 of us that generally knew what was going on. And, I knew none of us had spoken. So I'm like, it has to be the team. Somebody from the team, definitely said something to somebody. Or sometimes I might say, oh, you know what, this guy who I'm with, maybe he's the one who, he had to have said something to this guy.
Your client actually has people around them too. I remember getting word of a deal one time because a player's wife said something to somebody else that I knew and trusted. And, that's how that ends up being the case. There was another time where I got wind of a deal through somebody who worked in an agency who knew the information, but really wasn't part of the inner circle and wasn't supposed to divulge it. He gave me good information, but he was not supposed to. So that kind of muddied the waters a little bit.
Yeah, it also definitely, that's definitely the case. It definitely gets muddied quickly, and it goes like wildfire nowadays between social media and just communication is just so wide open now. So it's just a phone call or a text. You could shoot somebody a text and like, hey, did you hear this? Did you hear that? And all of a sudden it's just like, all these weird things come up. And then, a lot of times when people are verifying the contract with you, like a lot of times with, Ron Blum is somebody who's always involved in this, from the AP, and Ron is, he always wants the actual terms, to the letter. And, once it gets out there, it's out there, so like, but, a lot of times it's like, hey, but what about this? And you're like, there is not there, but somebody said this, but that could be the wife saying this to somebody and somebody took it the wrong way.
But in the end, isn't it in your best interest as an agent and as a union to have the terms out there?
No, the thing is, I've always said this, and I even said this when I was on the PR side, when I was with the Mets in PR, and we always say with Jay Horowitz, you guys are eventually going to get it. So you might as well give them the right information at the right time, though. You can't, but again, you don't want to do it when the guy hasn't gotten a physical yet, and then have, it become, so it's tricky. It's definitely a line to walk.
So Sweeny, one of the things that I appreciate about you in listening to you is, and this is hard when you work for the team, is being honest, right? And just letting them know, like, not letting people hear what you think they want to hear, but being honest. Sometimes it's not what they want to hear.
Let me correct you. I don't work for the team. I work for a radio station. Okay. And that is a clear distinction. I cover the team, just like, you have somebody covering the White House who works for ABC News. They don't work for the White House. They work for ABC News.
Yeah.
So I talk about the Yankees. That doesn't mean I work for them. So that's a clear distinction. I just try to be as fair and honest as I know how to be. I try not to get too far one way or the other. But I think the style that I've developed, I try to bring it back to center as often as possible. If somebody's going too far in one direction towards criticizing this side of it, I try to bring it back a little bit and say, well, don't forget to think about this. Or if somebody's trying to praise somebody too far on this side of it, I say, okay, well, that's great, but remember this. And whether it's the team or the player or whoever it's going to be, whatever side.
Or the agent.
I try to bring it back to a middle somehow by saying, okay, that might be true, but don't forget this. And, that doesn't always lend itself to, popularity, because you want something.
It doesn't, yeah.
Well, you want something to be extreme and to be passionate, and it's definitely this or it's definitely that. Where in our world, how many times is it definitely A or B? It's always a mix of the two things.
It's just in general with everything, there's his story, her story, and the truth, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think, Lou, your question really was, and I think, your point, I think you were trying to make to Sweeny, and Sweeney's 100% right in correcting you on that. But obviously Sweeny is somebody who's very unbiased, for somebody who has the connections and the ties to the team, even though you don't technically work for them, Sweeny. Michael Kay, I think, is very similar. John Sterling, maybe not too much. Susan, not too much.
But John, I love John, and we know what John is. He's like, he's this generation's Phil Rizzuto, right? And you love him. Right. I love listening to him. I love listening to Susan. But you know what it is, and I love that.
I think they go to great lengths and do criticize the team.
Yeah. Oh, John especially
quite often.
Yeah, so, John especially.
They do, but he revels in their success.
No, of course, he does, but every time he's on, when I'm listening to him and he's like, I hate to say this again, and he says it again, it's like they're not scoring any runs.
I try to get caught up in the idea of rooting for that. Like, I have to come on and talk about them whether they win or lose, and I have to do it at the same time every day. I can't get. I appreciate the emotion of the fan, and I try to tailor what I'm saying to the appropriate emotion that they're feeling, but I can't feel that. I don't. I don't want to bring that into it. I understand that you're going to be angry at that loss, and I'm going to try to address that, but I'm not going to be angry that they lost. I have a job to do. I'm going to do my job, and then I'm going to go home, and I'm going to come back and do it again. I can't be happy that they won. I'm going to do my job, but I understand that you're happy, and I'm going to play to that. And I think that's how I try to approach it.
So Sweeny, what's your favorite sport?
It's always been baseball. Yeah, baseball's always been baseball.
Okay, awesome. And so when you felt, how did you get to where you are now? Was it happenstance? Was it being at the right place at the right time? What was it?
I think it's some of that, but it's also hard work. It's funny because I hear a lot of people who hear what I do and they say, wow, how'd you get that? As if I somehow bought a lotto ticket and won. And to some degree, that's true, right? When you get to places that you love, it's true. But I also tell them, I said, how does a doctor become a doctor? How does a lawyer become a lawyer? You study and you walk a path to get there. Now, the path is not the same for somebody in broadcasting. I was fortunate enough. I grew up loving baseball. And I grew up in Pennsylvania. I was a Phillies fan growing up, right? Well, in Middletown, Pennsylvania, where I went to high school, our school district had a radio station that was staffed by kids in grades 7 through 12. And I got to start on the radio when I was in 7th grade, playing music, reading news, reading sports, and we broadcasted our school's football and basketball games. And as I got to 8th and 9th grade, I started doing that and recognized that this is a profession, that announcing games is a job and a profession. It's something I thought I could be good at, that I was good at for the level I was doing, and it's something that I wanted to pursue. Baseball being my favorite sport, that was always kind of that was kind of always a goal. So I went to Penn State, and who beat Miami, Chris, and I'll show you the
I know the game you're talking about. It's Chafin Field. I don't want to talk about
right
it.
There. That is DJ Dozier kneeling in the end zone after
Wow.
scoring the game-winning touchdown right there. So I just had to throw that in. I think he's regretting this right now completely. I went to college and majored in communications, and I got an internship at WFAN after my junior year. And that opened the doors to everything for me. 30 years later, I'm here at WFAN. I've worked my way up the ladder from producer to update anchor to covering the Yankees. And that's kind of where it fell for me.
Who was your mentor at FAN, like when you were starting?
The gentleman who hired me as an intern was named Eric Spitz, who went on to become the program director at FAN and is now a vice president at Sirius XM in their sports division. He's been someone that I've been close to for over 30 years now. He was in my wedding party and still considered. He's still one of my consiglieres when times are tough.
He's a good guy, Eric. I haven't talked to him in a long time. He's a great guy. I dealt with him quite a bit back in the day when I was with the Mets and everything. Sweeny, I was thinking about this. When do you remember how we first met, or when we first met? I really couldn't remember very well.
I've known your first year with the Mets would have been what, about 97, 98?
In PR, yeah, in PR, yeah.
So I would have met you then probably as I was transitioning from producer to update.
I remember that. Yep.
I was doing overnights, and that just come by Shea Stadium and just taking games and kind of see the people you're around. And kind of get to know people with the teams and get them to know they hear your voice. You want them to know your face.
Exactly.
And just kind of be part of that.
I remember. I remember. I don't remember the specific, if it was a specific like meeting or whatever. You don't either. But I remember different, working with you, dealing with you. I remember actually working with Ian Eagle back in the day, before anything. He was just, I just remember hearing his name on the radio. I didn't know who he even was, whatever. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't even know who I am now, but you'd
be surprised. Ian has this tremendous memory, and every once in a while, messages, we share stories about interns from 30 years ago.
Really?
Old TV shows.
That's so funny.
And not just like the 8th cast member of a TV show. He'll know that.
That's so funny. Also, Bob Wischusen, another one. There's so many. I mean, there's so many great people behind the scenes at FAN and through the years that we know, and that maybe people know their names, like you said, but have never seen their faces.
There's a text chain that has Ian Eagle, Bob Wischusen, and Chris Carlin, and me.
Chris is another one. Carlin's another one. Yep, that's so funny. Yeah, that's a good group. It's always a good group. I mean, I think look at Sweeny. Obviously, and then obviously I made my transition to becoming an agent and been doing that for the last 22 years. We always talk about it. You and I always talk about it. We're in such a similar position. Our kids are the same ages, and we kind of take the similar roles in our kids' lives and have been able to maintain our professional roles as well, which is, I think something to be said for that too.
And they get to appreciate and enjoy this. I actually, the news came down after I already sent the kids to school. I don't usually do this, but I texted my daughter, who's in 6th grade, that Aaron Judge is staying with the Yankees. And she wrote, yes. And I had emailed my son's teacher, he's in 4th grade, about something yesterday. And I said, I just emailed her back today, and I don't usually do this either. I said, you can go ahead and tell them. Like, I didn't want to wait till 4:00 to tell them Judge resigned, right? Like, I know
Yeah,
so I have this teacher to tell him, go ahead and tell them Aaron Judge is coming back the end, because I know how excited. Like, they're sharing part of it.
Oh, no question question about it.
I have fifth grade twins in the fifth grade,
Wow.
and as we were leaving through the garage this morning, I said I showed them I came up on my phone, and I showed them the phone. They're like, what? And I was like, now we can buy the Aaron Judge poster that you want. We gotta wait.
Yeah, we don't have to get rid of the jerseys. We were actually talking about dinner last night. We said, like, what happens if Judge signs somewhere else? And my son Ryan just says he just said very matter of factly, without even hesitating, well, then they'll be my second favorite team. I'm like, oh,
that's
I like it.
So, Sweeny, I'm the fan, right? What do the Yankees do now? Now they pivoted, or they got who they wanted. They still have some holes to fill. What do they do? Or what should they do?
I think they still need another outfielder, obviously. They still need pitching help. And I think they need to make a splash at the front of their rotation. I think Carlos Rodon makes a ridiculous amount of sense for this team, who has really some question with health and durability in their 2, 3, 4, 5 slots right now. So I think Rodon would go a long way in helping fortify that. They still need to figure out. They signed Tommy Kahnle. They still need to get some guys healthy back from their bullpen, like Clay Holmes, and figure out like kind of where he went haywire last year, and get him back in line to where he was an all-star for them. They have a few other bullpen things to take care of, but yeah, that's all next. And this team, this team has a core of players that isn't young, right? They're all 30, 31, 32, like Judge, like Stanton, like Rizzo, like LeMahieu, like Cole. Okay. You're not playing 2 years down the road with this group. You're playing for right now.
Yeah. Which leads me to my next question. Obviously, Houston with Pena at short, what do the Yankees do with Volpe? Do they give him a shot this spring to win the job?
I think Oswald Peraza and Anthony Volpe are going to get a lot of playing time in the spring, and we'll see where they go. I think ideally this is probably Peraza's job to lose at short, and Volpe starts the year at AAA. And then we'll kind of see where it goes and see what circumstances dictate. The Astros made a move with Jeremy Pena last year, but let's remember, the rest of their team was so good, they could let Jeremy Pena have, kind of grow through that season. Okay. We see ALCS MVP and World Series MVP. He didn't have an Aaron Judge regular season. He had a good regular season, but he also had a couple of craters in the middle of the year that they were able to overcome. Okay. In July and August, he struggled. They were fine. They had a huge lead in their division. They were able to let him play through that. The Yankees could do that. If the Yankees had a 10-game lead in their division and Oswald Peraza is the starting shortstop, and at the end of May, he's hitting 180, they can get through that. But if they're only have a 2-game lead, or if they're in second place and he's hitting 180, all of a sudden, drumbeat guys like you, Lou, are going to be calling saying, "Why have this kid at shortstop for? Why are we doing something else?" There's circumstances around it all. It's not just in a vacuum. You can give the young player a shot, but one of the reasons the Yankees have struggled the way in fans' eyes, I believe, to put young players in those positions is that they don't have room for error. If a young player struggles, the first thing people are doing is calling FAN saying, "Get this guy out of here, go trade for that guy." You need to give players lanes to grow, and teams that bring up young players a lot of times will do that. And maybe they're not even contending at the time. Maybe they're a second or third place team and looking at a year or two down the road. I'm telling you, the Yankees have all these 30-year-olds. They're win now. They can't afford to let a player grow into his role. So that makes it really hard to just say, go with the kids, let them play.
No, that's a great point. And it really, when it comes to the Yankees, no matter how old their core is, there's always an urgency to win in New York. And when you're the New York Yankees, that's always the case. But Sweeny, I know you got to run. You got a busy day. I don't want to hold you up anymore. Really appreciate you coming on.
Have me
It's
back
great
again.
to
I'm
have you.
listen, I didn't. You and I scheduled this day, and then all of a sudden Aaron Judge signs. So we only got a few minutes in, but
Of
come
course.
back. Have me back on again, and we'll go
We
through it.
absolutely will have you back soon. We really appreciate you coming on, especially because I know how busy you are. Great to see you as always. We'll be in touch, and thanks again for joining the show.
Thank you,
Chris,
Sweeny.
Lou, always nice. Chris, always nice to talk to you. Lou, it was great to meet you, and we'll do it again.
Thanks, Sweeny.
Will do.
Take care.
Be
Take
well.
care.
It was great to have Sweeny. Sweeny is a great guy. He's obviously knowledgeable. He's been at FAN for a long, long time for a reason. The guy is good at what he does, and obviously his takes are great. And he's always
He's amazing.
He said he's down
that's
the
why I
middle.
appreciate
He's just a smart guy who takes realistic looks at things. He's not. So it's always appreciated. I was really appreciate him coming on because you know how busy it is for him now. He's going to be probably tied up through the rest of the day.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I don't want to say it, to him, but I was like, that's why I feel like I'm not a big fan of Michael Kay because I'm just like, how do you balance the two? Because I've seen him, champion the Yankees, on ESPN, and then somewhat be critical on the Yes Network. And so what I appreciate from Sweeny always was he's always like, he's true to what he said. He is down the middle and he'll say things. And I'm driving and he's like, yeah, he's right. He's right.
Yeah.
If this guy's struggling or this guy's not, whatever it is, he's on point, but that's why I appreciate him. I really do for that reason.
He's great. He really is great. And he did a great job, but let's move on. Let's cover a couple other topics while we have a little time left. We got about 10 minutes or so. So
sure.
So I think we covered Aaron Judge and the Yankees. Obviously the Mets, very exciting with them. DeGrom leaves, a very historic thing. I think it's a historic moment in that here you got this iconic figure who, possibly in the middle, obviously we'll see how his arm holds up and his health stays, if he can stay healthy. But if he stays healthy, they're losing an iconic figure in the middle of his career. That said, it's a tough loss if that's the case. A lot of people wanted him to stay. A lot of people were very hesitant just because of his recent injury history. It's funny. So obviously Justin Verlander is the guy to sign. They went out and got him, which you got to give the Mets credit, Steve Cohen and Billy Epler and Sandy Alderson, the whole group there, to go out and get the best guy available. That's a typical George Steinbrenner type tactic where if a guy left, just go get the best guy. Don't get a guy, get the guy. They did get the guy. But Verlander, great year, obviously leading the Astros to the World Series. However, this guy missed a lot of time with injuries himself, and he's no kid. He's a lot older than DeGrom. So they're almost going in a similar direction as they did with Max Scherzer, which again, Scherzer had a great year, but he did miss a chunk, and then he came back and he struggled down the stretch. So it's going to be an interesting thing.
I think, short term, it's a great move, right? Short term, you're not giving him 5 years. DeGrom, in my opinion, didn't want to be here. I mean, you announced in spring training or the beginning, whatever it was, the beginning of the season, I'm opting out. So he, not even pitching yet, not even seeing how his season is going. He's like, I'm opting out, which, by the way, if you want to do that, that's your prerogative. You earn that right to have that opt out. So, I've spoken to a lot of Met fans. They're not upset. I got to be honest. I've spoken to 4 or 5 Met fans in the last couple of days.
I think people are very hesitant, as dominating as Jacob deGrom is when he's healthy. He just hasn't been healthy enough for a long enough time that people were hesitant. And it wasn't. I think some people are stunned and some people are upset because they're fans of his. But I think you're right in a way. I think he I think he's a guy who personality wise has been able to, handle New York as well as he can, but is probably been a little better suited for somewhere where it's a little more laid back and more to his personality.
For sure. And listen, I've said this numerous times at different
off the field. I mean, Lou.
Yeah.
I don't mean on the field. Yeah. Obviously, he is what he is. He's
exactly.
One of the most dominant
there's some people that are just not suited, for the city. They're more laid back. And listen, if he just didn't want to be here, He didn't want to be here. That's his prerogative, right? So
He
it
wants to
does,
be on a ranch
and that
somewhere.
goes for any player, by the way, not even DeGrom or as a Yankee fan.
Yeah.
I've always said, like, when we had a chance to sign Bonds and Maddox, and they were kind of iffy about being here, then I'm like, well, then I don't want you here, because then you'll never be the best version of you if you're not really all in, right? In being in this town. And this is, it's a hard town. But going to Verlander, I think Verlander just short term makes a lot of sense. Yes, there's a history, an injury history. He's 39. I get all that, but Uncle Stevie wants to win now, right? And so
he has the money, and to load up a short-term deal makes a lot of sense. It's not 100%. Something that 10 years from now he'll be lamenting, or the fans will be going, "Oh my God, I can't believe we're paying him." So it makes a lot of sense, and they'll make a shot at it, and they're going to try and win a World Series. So what a better place than the guy who just did it.
Yeah, and to me, the interesting things to me is going to be Trey Turner in Philly. I mean,
I thought Trey Turner in Philly was Philly's made a couple of big splashes in the last couple of days. Trey Turner was obviously the big one. Obviously, I think we've talked about Trey, and I think he's a terrific ball player, and certainly an area of need for the Phillies. So there's a team that went pretty far without that guy, and now they have him. So that's great.
Their lineup is stacked.
Yeah, that's a great pickup for them. Wow. And then late yesterday we had the Taijuan Walker signing, which Taijuan had a terrific year last year for the Mets. That's taken a strength from the Mets, and it's now taken to one of their rivals. So that's a big time move for the Phillies right there. I think Taijuan Walker might not be a Jacob deGrom or Verlander type guy, but he's certainly a solid middle to 2-3 guy in the rotation. So that's a great pickup for the Phillies. Another big one yesterday, we had Josh Bell. I thought Josh Bell to the Indians. I'm sorry, to the Guardians made a lot of sense.
Everyone says that.
Yeah, I thought. I think he's a guy. I think he's a guy who's going to step right in. I expect him to increase his power numbers and settle into a nice role there. Last year was a tough year for him, where he was, and then getting traded. And, assuming like a part-time role over there in San Diego. I think this year, the 2023, he'll bounce back with much bigger power numbers and settle in with that lineup. He's a perfect fit. Good guy off the field, switch hitter, gives them a nice solid guy on the middle of the lineup, and also, on that roster and in that clubhouse. So I think that's a great pickup for a good young team. So that was another one. Then we had Jock Peterson. I'm sorry. Yeah, Jock Peterson went back. But we also
Bellinger to the Cubs.
Bellinger. That's what I meant to say. Cody Bellinger going to the Cubs. I thought that made a lot of sense. Huh? Jameson Taillon just went to the Cubs as well. So I like what the Cubs are doing. Their financial restrictions are off now. I thought Bellinger on a 1-year deal makes a lot of sense for the Cubs. Ooh. And I think it makes a lot of sense for Bellinger, because he's obviously still young and he's a bounce back guy. And I know that's something that, Scott Boras as his agent is looking for him. And listen, he's a good kid. Obviously had a lot of success early in his career. His numbers have gone down a little bit the last few years, or maybe more than a little bit. But I still think he could be a guy. I'm a fan of his and a fan of his game. So I think he's a good pickup for the Cubs.
He's a great pickup for the Cubs. He's a great pickup. I said to myself, if for whatever reason the Yankees lose out on Judge, he would have been a perfect fit with that left-handed swing in Yankee Stadium. He could have, got him in a 1 year, but we got Judge, right?
I just see Kenley Jansen just signed with the Red Sox.
Wow.
So 2 years, $32 million. So that's, Kenley Jansen's one of.
But you know what the hell are the Red Sox doing though? Like, to me, listen, I'm a Yankee fan, right? But you have Bogarts, you haven't even entertained Devers yet in terms of an extension. Well,
Bogarts is a free agent, so he's going to be a real interesting one, because he's definitely one of the next big dominoes to fall. But I think, listen, you need a closer. They signed him for 2 years, 32. Sounds like that's about right. He's one of the best closers in recent history. And I think if it's a team that's, it's not a bad signing. If he struggles, he's a guy you could trade and to a contending team who might have, use for his services.
Yeah. So what do the Braves do now? Because the Braves, I mean, listen, the National League East is stacked.
There's a lot. There's just a lot of pieces in play, and I think with obviously some of these big guys signing in the last few days, I think we're going to see more and more, not only this week, but in in the next couple of weeks leading up to the holidays, and so it should be interesting. And then again, this isn't the old days. Back in the day when I first started in the business. In the early 2000s, if you hadn't signed by the winter meetings, it wasn't looking good for you. Now guys are strategically waiting until February, March to sign. So there's a lot that's going to happen. And obviously there's still a lot of marquee guys available. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And also how these guys signing affect the trade market as well.
So 3 guys, and we'll finish up. Where does Correa land?
No, that's a great question. Obviously, Correa and Bogarts are going to be big names, and Dansby Swanson. So I mean, we'll see how that shakes down. I don't know. I mean, it's obviously the Phillies were the one team. Will the Red Sox, make that move, and either bring their guy back or sign one of these guys? I don't know. What do the Dodgers do? Are they going to make a big move? Are they going to go with what they got? Or make a smaller scale move? I mean, we'll see. Also, the Mets, are the Mets going to go sign an infielder and move McNeil to the outfield? I think that could make sense for them. There's a lot of moving parts. Balls in play at this point.
Yeah, no, it's going to be for an interesting couple of weeks. I think, for me, Correa is like, man, he's a young kid, still 28. And just hasn't found that contract he wants, right? And it's just like, what is it that people are not jumping to him?
Well, I think he's a great player, but he hasn't had that breakout monstrosity thing that people are looking for. And and I think that's what Scott, Boras is recognizing, and that's what he's doing. He's going like year to year, hoping that he has the breakout year, much like some of these guys we're already seeing get, Aaron Judge being one of them, obviously. The extreme of it, but like even a Taijuan Walker to come up and have a really solid, strong year and then parlay that into a $72 million deal. So I think that's, you're playing cards a little bit, and it's a risky game to play, but a lot of times it does pay off. So
I agree.
You gotta have faith in the guy, and the guy has to have, you got to have faith in your guy, and your guy has to have the confidence that, hey, you know what? I can do this. I will do it. Watch what I do this year, and then you're going to see what happens next year, type of thing. So with the opt-outs and all these new kind of gadgets you can use, it makes a lot of sense.
So you as an agent, and this is kind of for me very interesting. You have, forget about Judge. We knew he was going to get his money, but you as an agent, what do you tell a Corey Bellinger? Like what's that conversation like?
Well, I mean, again, like Cody obviously has struggled the last few years. He hasn't had the year that he's wanted to have. So, you might want to, I mean, again, you got to know your personality, who you're dealing with. But I mean, if not knowing Cody other than, hi, hello, or how you doing type of thing. I don't know him like in depth as a person, but I mean, I would just say, obviously, Cody, you didn't have your best year. Obviously you've had a history of success early in your career. The last couple of years haven't been where you wanted them to be. There's going to be some rule changes. There are things going to change. The offers might not be where you want them to be as a free agent, as somebody who's available now. And he was let go too. I mean, he was non-tender. So, it's a little different. So he already knows that, the Dodgers didn't see the value in keeping him at that price. So that said, that made it a little easier to have a conversation with him and say, hey, listen, my recommendation is, and I'm sure this is what Scott did, is go out, we'll do a short-term deal. We'll keep our, I would say keep we'll keep our open mind and see what offers are there. But my recommendation is do a short-term deal, and hopefully next year rule changes. You're going to change the way you're doing things, and fix, tighten up your game and get back to where you were a few years ago. You bounce back and do that and put up an MVP type caliber year. He actually did win the MVP. It's not even caliber. He actually did it.
Yeah.
So you come back and do that this year. We know you're capable of doing it. You're a young guy who's still healthy. Then the sky's the limit. And then 1 year, 17 million all of a sudden becomes, 10 years, 300 million. So,
no, exactly. And by the way, you're having a great year. Maybe the Cubs are struggling. You get traded to a contender. You have a
that's true too. But the thing is, like, I think also you gotta, you gotta know what the personality you're dealing with, as I always say on this podcast. But you gotta say, sometimes you appeal to them and say, listen, do you want to roll the dice on you? Are you willing to roll the dice on you, or you want to just play it safe? You want to play it safe, then we could sign a 3-year deal for, whatever it is, 30 million, and we'll call it a day. But if you want to roll the dice on you, let's do a 1 year, $17 million deal. That's what they did. And, again, that whatever it was, whether it's Scott making the decision himself or using his or working with his client on it, which I'm assuming he did, then that's what they're doing. So.
Awesome. Well, this was good, man.
Yeah. Big thanks to Sweeny for coming on again. Great guy and a great personality on the air here in New York on WFAN, the world famous WFAN. He's a guy who is the Yankees guy at WFAN. It's a great position, and it's a great guy, and appreciate him coming on. Lou, always a pleasure to work with you here, and we'll see everybody next time.